So here we are, New York City, New Year's Eve, and we are on a shockingly empty 7th Avenue here. But what we've got tonight is a very, very special show, something never before attempted on Crowdsource the Truth. I don't know if anybody has ever done this before. Certainly not with the collection of wonderful individuals I have tonight. David Hawkins, John Cullen, gentlemen, welcome to the New Year's locked-in Eve. I'm actually outside, but you guys are locked in. How you guys doing?
I'm very well, Jason, and Happy New Year to everyone in your part of the woods.
Yes. Happy New Year to you, David. And John, how are you?
I'm doing really well, Jason. It's good to see you out on the streets.
Thank you. It's good to see me out on the streets, too. I was in a bit of an altercation yesterday, so we're going to avoid that today and stay focused on the conversation with you guys and basically what's going on here in New York tonight. Let me make sure we are live. We are live. Technical whatever achieved. So that is great. Now, let me do this, guys. I want to switch to a view so that you fellas can see what is going on. This is 7th Avenue, New York City. I'm about to walk past Penn Station. You know what? Historically, there's been a little bit of a disruption here. I super hope that does not happen. But the fact that the streets are empty like this, I mean, okay, I guess Times Square is closed off tonight because they are going to have the ball drop, so they don't want loads of cars driving around, but there should be more people around. So what we're going to do, fellas, is we're going to have a New Year's special that's going to be available to our sponsors. People who are new to the show may not know that people who sponsor the show get sponsor exclusive videos. And David and John both have their own shows, normally on Fridays. People can watch David Hawkins Reverse CSI by subscribing to subscribestar.com/reverse-CSI or patreon.com/reverse-CSI. And then on Friday nights, right after David's show, people can catch John Cullen Investigates on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen and patreon.com/IamJohnCullen. But tonight we're going to be talking mostly about New Year's Eve. There's been a lot of crazy stuff going on. Joe Biden seems to be on vacation. But what do you guys think about New York City New Year's Eve right now? David, how's this look to you?
Well, it looks like they, and we'll address no doubt they over the next hour and a half or whatever, it looks like at the moment they have won. I mean, Their objective was to shut down New York and all of the major cities of the Five Eyes countries. I believe the plans to put that in place started at least 50, 60 years ago, and you and I have covered a lot of that. And what intrigues me is my background in artificial intelligence, because I think the people who've shut you down are people I know. Jason, over to you.
Really? What do you mean?
Well, I believe there was the major planning. Remember J. Edgar Hoover said, the individual's handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous they can't believe it exists?
Yes,
I
remember
believe
that.
10 years ago, at a very famous place, there was a meeting of artificial intelligence scientists. I would call them rogue AI scientists. And they met in a place to discuss framing or structuring a perception of catastrophe in the United States. And they had a whole list of what might go wrong, including free energy running rogue around the universe. But started, and the most important one, was bioterrorism.
Whoa, we got the army right here.
So I believe that meeting, and when you choose, maybe in the second part of the show, we can go to that, but I can tell you where it was now, whenever you want.
Well, I think we're going to have more time to discuss that after 11:30 when we switch to the sponsor exclusive segment of tonight's show. People are going to be able to see it on either the Crowdsource the Truth sponsorship channels, the David Hawkins sponsorship channels, or the John Cullen sponsorship channels. So it's a super simulcast tonight, and it's going to be real exciting. John, you lived in New York for a time. What do you think about this?
Well, actually, you're right near my old office. I used to work in one of the Penn Station buildings when I was with Hewlett Packard.
Oh, I think you said it was one Penn Plaza, right? It's right down here.
Yeah, well, I worked in a bunch of the buildings. I worked at 1 Penn Plaza, 5 Penn Plaza, 11 Penn Plaza, so I've worked in a number of them. So yeah, you're in my old neighborhood. I used to live nearby. And it
smells
was
like urine,
strange.
John.
So some things don't change.
Right.
It smelled like urine in the 70s.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is somewhat remarkable. So there's no ball drop in Times Square?
No,
There's
they
nothing?
are. They are going to have the ball drop in Times Square, and I am
Yeah.
heading up there to see what's up. We see right here an ad for the metaverse. They're advertising the Quest 2. Now, it says from Facebook, but they've changed it to Meta. And they're trying to suck everybody into the metaverse. We actually haven't discussed that too much. Both of you guys have backgrounds in advanced software and artificial intelligence. Any thoughts about the metaverse for 2022, John?
Well, again, we talked about the movie Wall-E.
Yes.
And how Wall-E kind of portrayed this metaverse notion, and how everybody's sitting in their recliners and clicking and just getting obese.
Yes.
And that was sort of one of the threads of the movie. And I think this meta notion, for people whose lives are miserable and who live somewhere that's somewhat miserable, if you listen real closely, you guys might be able to hear the AK-47s, being fired into the air right now, right? Some parts of Minnesota.
Well,
right?
I mean, I was going to say, somewhere miserable, right? You mean where there's just like garbage everywhere and thugs rolling around trying to beat you up?
Well, look at like Philadelphia. Philadelphia had more murders this year than in the last 50 years.
Wow.
Cops are getting shot while they're, sitting in their cars. So, if that's what's happening in the real world, putting on a pair of goggles and pretending that you're in Hawaii next door to Zuckerberg's house.
Right.
Yeah, why not? It looks nice.
Exactly. We can gauge not only what's happening in the real world, John, we also have an opportunity to gauge what is happening in the weed world here at Weed World. David, do they have Weed World in do they have Weed World in Vancouver, David?
Are they driving these around in Canada?
No, I haven't seen them, but you just mentioned something about the metaverse.
Yes. And, give us your input.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with this term, transhumanism.
Yes.
But there are a number of addicts of transhumanism, and we'll be discussing them in the show, who decide that if we could move people's perceptions into the metaverse, maybe they can be more easily controlled.
Yeah.
And I think what we discovered, going back to 1981, when I was coordinator of artificial intelligence and geoscience research at Schlumberger, I had some intuitions, I didn't call it a metaverse, that real people, live in a metaverse associated with their senses, hearing, touch, etc., and their ability to imagine themselves in any configuration. You know my story about the pebbles.
Right.
Jason.
Yes.
Right? So now when you're embarking on a documentary, you imagine yourself in a metaverse of your choosing. The great danger for humanity is when they choose your metaverse, right? And here we're talking about someone who I believe is a charlatan, an incredible sinister. It's the guy called Noam Chomsky at MIT.
Yes.
Now, this sucker basically said the way to control the public is to organize a debate where everyone feels they can participate energetically and express their opinion, but control the limits of the debate. In New York, as I see it now, they're controlling the limits of the debate. And I now know who they are. Over to you.
Well, we should not reveal that yet. We'll talk about that when we make the transition over to the sponsor exclusive segment that people will be able to watch on all three of the sponsored channels for Crowdsource the Truth, for Reverse CSI, and also for John Cullen Investigates. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed, but when I was standing over there before, the police are not allowing people through up to Times Square. So I guess all the people we're seeing here either don't have the vaccine passport or for whatever reason haven't been allowed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go just 1 block further west here, and then we'll see as we go up if there's any opportunity to get, closer to Times Square. I don't know if I'm going to have any luck, but this is an unprecedented New Year's Eve in New York City because last year there wasn't this blocked off. I was able to actually be kind of in Times Square. We'll see what happens tonight. We've got another about 20 minutes here on YouTube, but I do think that the metaverse, Meta from Facebook, it's going to become a big deal. We got a lot of big tech problems happening right now, guys. A lot of censorship. Did we see this? I don't know if you guys had a chance to see. They've started releasing some clips from this Joe Rogan interview. John, did you see that? Dr. McCullough, I think?
Well, Dr. Malone.
Malone,
Dr.
sorry.
Malone.
Malone.
That's okay. Yeah, I watched a little bit of it, and, some of the things that he says sound like things that I say, which is, let's look at the data, let's look at the evidence, and you guys, you make your own decision. He and I take a similar approach to looking at the data, letting the data describe what's happening. I think the difference is
John, have we got you there? I hope I'm not getting to an area where there's a data problem. John, can you hear me? David, can you hear me? David, have I got you there? The guys seem to be frozen. Okay, you're back now. You're back. I think I might have been in a dead zone. Can you guys hear me?
We're back.
Sorry, John.
Yes, we lost you.
You were telling us that Dr. Malone, he's taking the same approach that you are taking, in that he wants people to look at data and come to their own conclusions about that. Doesn't seem to be the way other people want that to happen.
And, so I appreciate that approach. I wish that we could get Dr. Malone on the show because I'd like to talk about more data than he's been looking at. He's been looking at a subset of data. I'm looking at more data than he's looking at. Yeah. And I want to show him that data so that he can say, oh, well, that changes everything.
Absolutely.
So I'm eager to see if we can get him on the show in 2022. And I think our audience has been hounding him.
Oh,
so
really?
That's one of the interesting... Oh, my gosh. I don't know if you guys have been seeing this, but there are some viewers of ours who have just been absolutely relentless on Twitter, sending tweets to Dr. Malone, to Dr. McCullough, inviting them on Crowdsource the Truth, inviting them to come on the show, basically saying, Dr. Cyril Wecht came on the show, and Dr. Scott Jensen came on the show, and I had Dr. Roger Schwelt on the show, and we've had, Dr. Judy Mikovits on the show, and so why wouldn't these other doctors come on the show and look at the same data? So the audience has been very aggressive.
Okay, I'm about to get run over here.
Yeah, don't get killed.
No. I thought they had this closed off as well, but apparently not. Have any of those doctors responded at all, John, or they're just ignoring the requests from Crowdsource the Truth viewers?
No. So interestingly, Dr. Richard Durso is kind of a famous doctor. And in fact, David, this is right up your alley. He patented a certain ocular device. He's a famous MD. I believe he's an ophthalmologist. And he holds the patent on something having to do with some ocular thing for the eye. And he's been rather vocal on Twitter, and he recently tweeted, "I love your show."
Oh wow!
So that was very kind of him.
That's great.
And that we've got a lot of nurses and physicians assistants and doctors of osteopathy, and there's a lot of people who watch this show because of the data. Not because of my rap songs. They're watching because of the charts. They're watching because of the data.
Right.
Could I touch on this data issue?
Please, David.
Yeah. So in the oil industry, they say data is king. And until I arrived on the scene at Schlumberger, basically every oil company had its own legacy systems. And the number one problem, if Shell and BP had a joint venture on the North Slopes, they would have their data in proprietary formats and they couldn't talk with each other.
Right.
And that's a huge problem. Right? So Schlumberger was working on it, and they introduced a couple of AI researchers at the Schlumberger Dollar Research. These two guys, who I'll name in the next part of the show, basically they had their opinions of what to do with data in terms of artificial intelligence, and they were both absolutely fundamentally, and I would argue almost criminally wrong. That is to say, people do not address data the way they wanted to do it, using artificial intelligence. First of all, because they don't have the capacity to be a geologist and imagine yourself to be a glob of oil moving through the reservoir rock.
Right.
And that's what I wrote my paper about in the analysis of expert thinking.
Right.
And I think John made some kind comments about that. But moving on, all of the work that I did in the oil industry for oil field data interpretation applies to crime scene investigation. Because we are looking now at New York, and for me, it's one big crime scene. Because what's been done to New York and New Yorkers is they've manipulated their perceptions in the way Noam Chomsky describes, such that New Yorkers are trapped between a debate, right? And they're controlling the limits of the debate. Do you vax or do you not vax, etc., etc. So basically, they're not looking at how the virus is being spread. And I believe now, going with a little bit of research, I found the place where the conspiracy was launched 10 years ago, right, to drive New York into the state it is today. Not just New York, but any major city. Over to you.
Yeah, it's a terrible state, people can see. Now, there's a lot of Chinese businesses opening. Happy New Year. Very well, very well. Merry Christmas, right. It's in a terrible state, David. I mean, they're very serious about keeping people out of Times Square this year. Last year, I was able to walk up a couple of these different blocks and kind of find my way into Times Square, but the police have got these makeshift, fences set up everywhere. It's clearly nobody's getting in there. And
so Jason, where are you now? It looks like you're at 42nd and 8th. Is that right? 42nd and 9th?
40th and 8th. And there is the Port Authority right over there. I'm right outside the New York Times building, actually. So if we want to talk about fake news, this is a good time to do that. The New York Times, David, as you've pointed out to us, for several years, actually, the CEO, Mark Thompson, was the former Director General of the BBC. And the New York Times is also where this 1619 project was launched. We had the publisher of Skyhorse Publishing, the CEO of Skyhorse Publishing, Tony Lyons, come on and explain to us how, even though Robert F. Kennedy's book has been selling like crazy, it's the #1 bestseller on Amazon, the New York Times basically refuses to acknowledge it. So, they're scrubbing data, they're hiding information from people, they're elevating news that they like and suppressing news that they don't like, irrespective of what is true and what is false. So people are really not able to formulate decisions and opinions based on fact. It's based on falsehoods. But Weed World is doing crazy business.
Right, so who launched the COVID dilemma game? It was the BBC.
Look at this. Here we got police checking vaccine passports. Look at that. Look at that. They're checking them.
You're looking at a
I can't believe this guy's a cop.
crime.
He's got to lose about 100 pounds.
Well, he's
Sorry.
got a bit of substance to him, I guess. But just going back to, in 2018, right, the BBC published a documentary called Contagion! Which showed, and now people interested in data like you, John, must be interested in this, because I remember when you were walking around New York trying to check out where the shortage of ventilators was.
Right.
Remember that, Jason?
Yes.
Well,
looking
we
at the
didn't
hospitals.
find any particular shortage. So
Correct.
what they've done through the BBC is actually they've created the limits of the debate. One set of data is coming from empirical data in hospitals, right, where people are dying, not necessarily from COVID, but they can be attributed to COVID. Cambridge University for the BBC's program called Pandemic. And what they're doing, I believe, John, is they're mixing simulated data with empirical data, and the mix is being concealed from the public at large from what is perceived. That basically drives you into a buying pattern. Let's say now, what are we into? Possibly the fourth booster shot?
Oh yeah, they're already talking about that. Absolutely.
And if we think Omicron is going to be the last mutant, we got some real estate in Florida to sell it. Right?
Actually, Florida real estate is booming, David.
More booster shots. And the company that is providing the vaccines adverse event reporting system and contact tracing that is out generating and driving this, of course, is hit from the public. Over to you.
Well, I just want people to look around at this crowd here. This is the stupidest thing that Bill de Blasio has done today, because now, even though you need a vaccine passport to go into Times Square, all these streets adjacent to Times Square are jammed up with people who are, obviously we're all in pretty close proximity, but we've also got a major concentration of police behind fences, and a situation here where if anything happens and somebody in this crowd or anywhere up 8th Avenue, there's a huge crowd. If anybody here needs service from NYPD, you're basically out of luck. So it seems like we've got a dangerous situation developing, and that's a big thank you to Bill de Blasio, no longer the mayor. I guess after midnight, I think January 1st, Eric Adams comes in. Not sure if he's going to be doing much better. Now, gentlemen, we are getting very, very close to the moment where we're going to make our transition over to the sponsor exclusive segment that will continue through midnight. I don't know that we're going to get an opportunity to see the ball drop, but I'm going to continue to walk around, and people will be able to join us on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And of course, they're going to also be able to watch people who are sponsors on subscribestar.com/reversecsi, patreon.com/reversecsi. David Hawkins subscribers will be able to see the simulcast there. And of course, John Cullen subscribers on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen and patreon.com/IamJohnCullen. Everybody's going to be able to enjoy the New Year's locked-in Eve. It's kind of the New Year's super spreader Eve out here on 8th Avenue, but we will be back in just about 5 minutes on those sponsor exclusive channels. Don't miss the New Year's locked-in Eve with me and all these people who are not going to be allowed into Times Square. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and thanks so much for making 2021 as good as it could possibly be, given the terrible conditions that are going on everywhere. And thanks to all the viewer sponsors who make this show possible. David, John, I want to thank you guys for making the content and the information that we've been bringing to our viewers just so outstanding. It's going to continue tonight in just 5 minutes, so join us on Subscribestar and Patreon. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
Listen to that guy.